So Black Ops 6 has been officially announced, and in today's video, I'm going to be talking about all the details and whether or not it's actually going to be any good. Before we get into all of that, if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like for the algorithm and so more people can see this video, and subscribe for more future Black Ops 6 news. So starting off, as I said before, we're going to be taking a look at all the details that was given to us through the Black Ops 6 Direct, and I will be giving my opinion on the game so far at the end of the video. First up, we have the campaign, and I know a lot of people don't really care for the campaign, but I've always enjoyed having a campaign in Call of Duty games, and to me, I think it sets the expectation up for the rest of the game. So the game takes place in the early 90s after Call of Duty Cold War, which, if you were wondering, is technically Black Ops 5, and is set after Black Ops 1 and after the flashback scenes from Black Ops 2, but before Black Ops 2. So basically, it's a bit before Black Ops 2, after Black Ops 1. Here's a visual if you are confused, because I kind of was. One of the first details they talk about is in the campaign, they are opening up how you can go about missions by actively allowing you to choose if you go about missions with stealth or if you go in guns blazing. This was sort of the case in Cold War, however, I think they are just opening it up even more, especially with some of the locations that we will be seeing in the campaign. Some of the locations they mentioned were like talking your way through a casino in Europe to pull off a heist, or figuring out your way through this open battlefield in the Iraq desert, which, as they mentioned, is the biggest map ever created for a Call of Duty campaign. So even though this isn't something that we haven't seen before, I think they are just going to give players even more choice, as Treyarch has always done with the multiple endings and all that sort of stuff. Speaking of things returning from Cold War, they are bringing back the campaign hub called the Safe House and the evidence board, which I really liked. It allowed you to keep track of what was going on in the story even if you didn't play for like a day or two. And the hub allowed you to interact with characters outside of just missions, which I do think is a nice touch. Another returning feature from Cold War is the human shield mechanic, which I totally forgot about, but the real question I'm wondering is if that mechanic will be coming to multiplayer. I doubt it will, but we'll find out when the full multiplayer reveal comes out, so I don't know. Moving on from the returning stuff, they spoke about the new enemy types and enemy AI that is going to be in the game. We could see what looked to be some sort of juggernaut enemy type and some heavy armor enemy type, but the real thing I want to talk about is the enemy AI. As we all know, enemies in Call of Duty can sort of be dumb. However, Treyarch described the enemies in Black Ops 6 as relentless, seeking to outmaneuver you, actively cutting off escape routes, and pushing onto a player's location, forcing you to think on your feet a bit more in this campaign. I think this could be pretty interesting. However, we won't know so far until the game is out and people actually get their hands-on experience, so we'll have to wait and see. Also, something that is new but also in the realm of returning is gadgets. I'm going to quickly list everything that I saw in the trailer, so let's go ahead and get into it. First, we have some returning stuff like RCXD, stims, a disruptor, which is kind of like a shock charge from Black Ops 2, and the fan favorite throwing axe is coming back. Now moving on to the new stuff, which I don't know how much of it will be in multiplayer, but I'll list it nonetheless. We have a tranquilizer trap, which will put enemies to sleep in the campaign. I don't know how it's going to work in multiplayer. Next that we saw is something called a homing knife, which tracks enemies and sticks to them, then explodes. I'm going to guess that this will change when it comes to multiplayer side of things, because if not, it's going to be super annoying. Now that pretty much covers everything for the campaign side of things. Now we're going to be moving on to the multiplayer side of things and what we know so far. One of the major things that's going to stand out right away is something called Omni Movement. Basically, Omni Movement is a brand new movement system for Call of Duty that lets you sprint, slide, or dive in any direction you want. It's definitely going to need some getting used to, but I think done right, this could honestly change the way that we'll be playing Call of Duty for years. Speaking of movement systems, they also showed off this thing called Intelligent Movement, which reduces the amount of buttons you have to press in order to move around. To be honest with you, I will probably be turning this off, as it's basically just like auto mantle, auto slide, stuff like that, and I've never really used stuff like that in these games, so yeah. Another movement feature they were showing off is something called corner slicing. The best way I could explain this is kind of like contextual leaning mechanic in the game that automatically does it as you're turning around corners. It's a little hard to explain, but I'm showing some of the gameplay that they showed, so hopefully it'll help you better understand this. Moving to stuff that doesn't really deal with movement, but rather animations, they were talking about how they expanded the animations to deaths in multiplayer by expanding the hit zones so that you have more unique animations based on where you get shot. Hopefully this doesn't mean that like damage numbers should be any different. I think it just deals with the animations to make them more realistic. Now moving into more of the gameplay aspects, there is going to be new weapons from from the era, but they didn't really mention anything, so we'll have to wait and see what's up with that. I also noticed that the gunsmith is returning with a possible 8 attachments for each gun. It's a little hard to tell, but I'll show you the part that I'm talking about, and to me at least, it looked like you could have a possible 8 attachments put onto one gun. No one has confirmed this, however, so I could be wrong, but you look at this screenshot and you tell me. For maps, they mentioned that there will be 16 new maps at launch, 12 being core 6v6 maps and 4 strike maps that can be played as 6v6 or 2v2 maps with a classic 3-lane design. Speaking of maps, Nuketown will be returning for Black Ops 6. They didn't say it out loud, but you can see it in this part of the trailer that a dev was loading into a match on Nuketown, so I mean, that pretty much confirms it for me. Speaking of returns, Theater Mode is going to be coming back along with Classic Prestige. For the Classic Prestige, they said that there will be 10 Prestiges and 1,000 levels after Master Prestige, and a special reward for those who hit level 1,000. Another interesting thing they confirmed was having a fully customizable HUD that can change to your liking. I don't know how much of that I'll be doing, but it is a nice feature. Something else that caught my eye was the way that they talked about how they designed this multiplayer. They talked about how they thought about 3 core playstyles when making the game, those being Enforcers, which are your run and gun slayer types, Recon Player, who are all about intel and counter intel play, and Strategists, which are those support players who will throw their bodies onto the OBJs and do anything for the win. This caught my eye because I'm wondering how the perk systems are going to work in this game and if it'll be tied into these 3 core playstyles and how that will affect the game. We'll have to wait and see. Now, let's get into the mode they shared the least about, but that the community is the most excited about: zombies. Round-based zombies is confirmed to be back with 2 maps at launch. Gobblegums are also going to be making a return from Black Ops 3, which we know because of the pre-order packages that they showed. Along with that, the Omni movement system will also be in zombies, so that'll be interesting to see how training strats change. It'll be continuing the Dark Aether storyline from Black Ops Cold War, which I didn't finish, but I did do the Easter eggs for the first 2 maps, and I liked them, so I'll be waiting to see how they handle that. Now, something they didn't talk about that I'm just kind of speculating on is if there will be new zombie types coming to the game, based off of this one zombie they showed right at the start before they started talking about zombies. This fat zombie at the start could be some sort of new zombie, or could be something we've seen before, but maybe with a new skin. I don't know, just something I kind of noticed. And that's pretty much everything we know about Call of Duty Black Ops 6, and I gotta say, it's looking pretty promising so far. I mentioned in a previous video that I have not bought a Call of Duty game since Cold War, and that's because at a fundamental level, I did not agree with how the games were looking, but I gotta say, Black Ops 6 has impressed me so far. The real winning point will be when the actual beta comes out for the game, and of course, I'll be paying attention to the multiplayer reveal on August 28th to see if they can win me even more, because at the end of the day, they can say all the right things, but it matters most about how the actual game feels. Until that point, I'll probably be sticking with XDefiant because I truly enjoy everything going on with that game so far, and next week's video we'll be taking a look at what they plan to bring to the official Season 1 of XDefiant, which if you guys didn't know, there was a lot of leaks recently about XDefiant, and I gotta say, so far, those leaks seem to be looking pretty true, so if you want to check out that video, you can. It'll be linked down below, or in the top right, or however that works nowadays. But yeah, I hope you all enjoy this video, and I've been iFoamyy, you guys have been awesome, and I'm out. Peace.